Welcome to Ground Control and part 3 in the review series of this fantastic looking Volantex P51D Mustang. Okay, so if you watched the previous 2 videos, if you watched the first video where I did the maiden flight on the plane, you know that the spinner came off in flight. Well, I was out there flying today and I found part of my spinner, but I did not find the rest of it. Okay, so in the previous video, part 2, I told you about the amp draw on the motor, on the stock motor, and why it was running through those 2-cell LIPOs so quickly. So I stated that it had a bad motor. I want to restate that. It may be the motor, it may be the speed controller. I'm not sure which one, because I have seen speed controllers cause a lot of inefficiency in brushless motors before. It's kind of an art and a science getting an ESC and a motor matched up, because some ESCs work much better with specific motors and vice versa. So you've got to have a good prop, you've got to have a good ESC, you've got to have a good brushless motor, and a LIPO that has the capacity to provide the amount of amps that it's requiring. And there's a lot that goes into it to be able to get good thrust and also get good efficiency at the same time, which is what I always strive to do when I pick out power systems. Now, a 2808 motor, which is what that had on here in stock, it's only an 1800 kV with that 10 amp ESC, spinning that 3-blade 6.7 inch prop, and the blades are pretty thin and the pitch didn't look that aggressive. It should not have been pulling nearly the amps that it was pulling, so that's why I ended up replacing that. But I am not sure if it was the motor or if it's the ESC. Now that I have the motor pulled, before I put out the final video in this review, which is going to be review part 4, I will try and have for you a determination on whether that it's the motor or the ESC or both. So I will put the motor on the thrust stand with the load meter and hook it up to a different ESC that I know is good, and then we're going to see what kind of amp draw that we get with the stock prop, and then I'll be able to definitively tell you if it's the motor or if it's the ESC. But I replaced both of them because I wanted to run it on 3S, and I'm not even sure that the motor is rated for a 3S LIPO. Okay, so let me see. In this flight, and the flights today that I'm going to be showing you, we're going to start off with a 2S LIPO in it. I did not have a chance to bench test this motor with a 7x4 prop on a 2S or a 7x4 motor prop on a 3S. When I tested this motor a while back, the smallest prop that I tested on that motor was an 8x4 on a 3S. So it was 8x4 and larger props that I tested on this motor. So I can't tell you exactly how much thrust it's going to produce on the 2S or 3S until I have time to put one of those motors on the bench. I will try and have that information for you in part 4 as well. So we're going to be testing 2S LIPO flight and 3S LIPO flight today. So we'll be testing the power system. We're also going to be testing the durability of my reinforcement on the landing gear to see how well that holds up. And if the flights are successful, we're also going to be computing the approximate amount of flight time that you should get with this power setup on a 2S, hopefully on a 2S, I know on a 3S. So I will see you out at the field.
I've got it set for 3 minutes. I don't think this 2S power system has as much power as the stock one did. I think I'm going to have to switch out the 7x4 to an 8x4. I'm at full throttle. to an 8x4 on a 2S LiPo. Alright, so let's bring it back in and land it. And go around. Man, this thing is not wanting to come down. All right. I finally got it back on the ground. Man, that thing was just floating. All right. So I'm going to see if I have an 8x4 prop in my kit and put an 8x4 prop on it with this 2S LiPo and see what we have with that. It definitely does not have as much power with the 7x4 prop as it did with the stock setup. So, and if that doesn't work out, then it's going to be 3-cell in it. Alright, we're in the air anyway. Let's see what this prop setup feels like. Nah. I think I just need a higher kV motor on the 2S. No power. Yeah, there's no power there. Okay. I'm going to bring it back in. Change the prop back out to a 7x4. Hard landing. Well, the landing gear's holding up so far. What an adventure it is taking off out here. Seems they have plenty of power with a 3S. Stay out of the sun. Yeah, pretty speedy on the 3S. Oh, how about that? Better roll rate. Well, this is just, I think, the 4th flight on this plane after my repairs and modifications. Little split S there. Okay. Let's see if we can bring it in for a landing. Oop. Boy, even in this rough stuff. So, I'm going to check the voltage in the LIPO to get an estimate of how much flight time I can get out of this on my 3S system. It's flying very well. It's got better roll rate now that I've made the adjustment on the ailerons. It has plenty of power on a 3S system. Rolls are nice, loops are nice, split S maneuvers are very nice. Man, I am telling you, that is some iffy stuff. Nice loops. Now it's flying like a Warbird should. Beautiful. Nice. Alright, there's my timer again until I get calculations on the flight time. Let's bring it in.
Okay, so the flights went very well. I was disappointed that on a 2S LiPo system, even with an 8x4 prop, it just did not have a sufficient amount of power. I think that Volantex picked the right KV for that motor when they picked that motor 1800 kV. They make this motor in an 1800 kV, but all I had in my inventory was a 1400 kV. I do have a Racer Star BR 2208 1800 kV on order, but it'll, you know, who knows, it'll probably take 30 days to get it. When I get it, I will put it on the thrust stand and compare it with the numbers on this motor on both 2S and 3S to see which motor would be the absolute best to put in this airframe. On 3S, I was extremely happy with the performance. I knew on 3S, even though I didn't have a chance to bench test it, I knew that it was going to have plenty of power for the weight of this airframe, and it does. It's fast, it's agile, and it's very aerobatic with this motor, prop, and speed controller on a 3S system. And I was running a GNB 3S 550 milliamp hour 80C/160C LIPO in this system. Okay, now when I calculated the cell voltage before I started and the cell voltage when I landed, because I was only in the air for 2 minutes and 39 seconds, and I was in the throttle a lot when I had that flight going. This was the first flight. I took the voltage off of the battery after the first 3S test flight. You should be able to get 6 to 7 minutes of flight time with this power setup based on how I was flying it, and I was in the throttle a lot on a 3S system. This power system is just not going to be viable for a 2S, not even with an 8x4 prop. It's going to take a little higher kV motor to run this on a 2S and a 3S system. That's my hope. I hope that when I get that 1800 kV motor, that this will produce plenty of thrust for a 2S and, you know, a great amount of thrust on the 3S. But we'll have to see after I get it. But the plane was extremely stable. I was surprised. The CG was great. Before I went out, you know, everything seemed like it was very well balanced. It held its line. It didn't drift. It was very responsive. If you saw, the roll rate was so much better because of the adjustment I did on the aileron linkage. When I had it flying the first time and it felt tail heavy, I had full trim in my transmitter for down elevator. So before I took it out today, I did mechanical trimming on the elevator, took all the trim out of the transmitter. I had absolutely no trim anywhere in my transmitter when I flew this plane today. And I didn't have to. I mean, it was perfectly trimmed. I didn't have to do anything to it. The power that I had to pull through big long loops, pulling through a loop, doing a split S maneuver, doing the rolls, it was great. I wish I would have had more time out there today before the wind kicked up to get more flights on it. Unfortunately, I didn't. But once I had this plane set up, it was a blast to fly. And I'm going to be putting a lot more LIPOs through this. I was hoping, you know, if Murphy had not been with me every step of the way in this review, this is probably the hardest review on a product that I've done so far, just because everything that could go wrong went wrong, every step of the way. So I finally gotten to the point where everything is working the way it should, and it's a great flying plane, and you saw it in the 2 short test flights that I did today. But so I wanted to have more flights on this so that I could show you before I got to the end of the review more what the plane is capable of. But unfortunately, I won't have that. But in videos shortly following the end of the reviews, I will take it out and I will put it through its paces, and we will see more of what this plane can do. But I'm very impressed with it. It's unfortunate that I got one that had a bad motor. If I hadn't had a bad motor, everything would have turned out great right from the beginning, except for the landing gear. Now, this landing gear, and I've never showed videos with outtakes before, but I think when I put the 4th one together to give you the tips, tutorial, setup, I'm going to give you all my setup on this plane in a short tutorial on exactly how I reinforce the landing gear, because I think this is going to work. This is going to work great. Okay, so I've got a lot of information to disseminate in the final video for this, with the tips, tutorial, setup, etc. And then if I have time, I will put some outtakes in there to show you how Murphy was with me every step of the way with this plane. You won't believe a couple of things that happened along the way, but it was discouraging, but I kept with it, and now I have a great flying plane. So in part 4, I will give you my conclusion on this plane, along with the tips, tutorial, all the information that I have that will be valuable for you to have on this plane. So stay tuned, that'll be coming up next. Thank you for watching. Please give a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. And I will see you in the air.